The sky split open like a wound, and Marcus dropped his coffee mug on the observatory floor. Streams of crystalline light carved through the clouds above Mojave Valley, and what followed was the most beautiful catastrophe he'd ever witnessed. A ship, angular and impossible, descended with a grace that belied the flames engulfing its starboard side. Marcus ran, not away, but toward the impact zone, his mind already cataloging the implications. First contact. After 40 years of listening to empty space, humanity was about to receive visitors, and they were literally falling from the sky. He found them in the wreckage, two figures emerging from the smoke like goddesses from mythology. The first had skin that caught starlight, with hair that seemed to shift between silver and violet. Her sister was equally striking, darker features with eyes that glowed faintly amber. Both wore suits that appeared almost liquid, flowing and reforming as they moved. "Are you the dominant species?" the silver-haired one asked, her accent like music played backwards. "Yes, I'm Marcus, and you're on Earth," he managed, his translator implant working overtime to render her words into English. "I'm Solene," she said, gesturing to her companion. "This is Verity. Our diplomatic vessel suffered catastrophic failure during descent. We need shelter, and, more importantly, silence. Your governments cannot know we're here yet." Marcus should have called someone. Every protocol demanded it. Instead, he led them to his small cottage adjacent to the observatory. Through the back roads where the desert swallowed secrets. Something about them, maybe the desperate hope in Solene's eyes, maybe the way Verity's hand trembled slightly, made him trust them. They told him their ship was monitoring a nearby research facility, that they'd come to observe humanity, not to invade. Reasonable lies, he would learn. But that night, as they sat in his kitchen drinking tea and discussing philosophy, Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Solene's laughter was genuine, warm, and when Verity asked him about human music, there was real curiosity in her voice. As midnight approached, they both became drowsy from the long flight and Earth's higher gravity. Marcus offered them his bedroom, and they accepted without protest. As he settled into the living room, covering himself with a thin blanket, he heard them through the wall, voices hushed. "Do you think he suspects?" Verity asked. "No," Solene replied softly. "He's exactly as they said, honorable. It will make this easier." Marcus's eyes snapped open. Easier? He forced his breathing to remain steady, controlling every muscle. In the darkness, he decided to play the perfect fool. He would pretend to sleep deeply, would listen, would discover what these beautiful, mysterious women truly wanted from him and from humanity. What he didn't expect was the way his heart would race when Solene peeked into the living room an hour later, checking if he was truly asleep. What he didn't anticipate was the longing in her expression, as though she wanted to say something she couldn't, and the realization that whatever her hidden motives were, her vulnerability was entirely genuine. For 3 days, Marcus maintained his deception. He would feign deep sleep whenever Solene and Verity discussed matters they thought were private, ears straining to catch every word. What he discovered was more complex than simple espionage. They weren't here to spy. They were here to save him. Apparently, somewhere in the vast cosmos, humans were classified as an endangered species. Their civilization had been marked for intervention by a coalition called the Harvesters, beings who collected genetic material from developing worlds before those worlds were deemed unsuitable for advancement. Earth was scheduled for their arrival in 60 solar cycles. Selene and Verity represented a resistance movement within the coalition's regulatory body. They'd volunteered for this dangerous mission to make first contact with humanity, to offer advanced technology and protection, but only if Marcus could convince Earth's leaders to accept their help without government intervention in human affairs. "It's a political nightmare," Verity had explained to Selene while Marcus lay perfectly still, his pulse thundering. "The Council will never approve this." "Which is why we do it this way," Selene replied. "We form a bond with their representative, an unofficial alliance. By the time the Council realizes..." One evening, Marcus couldn't maintain the charade. He'd been watching Selene stare at the stars through his telescope, her hand pressed against the glass like she was reaching for home. Something inside him cracked. "I know," he said, rising from the couch. "I know everything." Selene spun, and for a moment he thought he saw fear. Then resignation. "How long?" "Since the first night." He stepped closer. "You're not here to study us. You're here to save us." Verity appeared in the doorway, her luminous eyes reflecting the lamplight. "We've made a mistake," she said quietly. "We should have left before he became involved." "Involved in what?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he knew. "In us," Selene admitted, and when she looked at him, all pretense fell away. "Humans experience emotions more intensely than my kind. We were warned about this, about the effect proximity would have." She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the faint pattern of lighter swirls across her cheekbones. "About the effect you would have on me." Marcus reached out slowly, giving her time to retreat. She didn't. His fingers brushed her arm, and she drew a sharp breath. Her skin was warm, almost fevered, and thrummed with a subtle vibration he felt in his bones. "This complicates everything," Verity said. But she didn't sound angry. She sounded sad. "Then let it be complicated," Marcus said, turning to Selene. His hand found hers, and her fingers curled around his with surprising strength. "Whatever you came here to do, I'm helping. Not because of protocol or politics. Because you matter to me, and I won't let anything take you from this world or from me." Selene's eyes glistened with moisture, perhaps an alien equivalent of tears. She pulled him close, and when their lips met, it was tentative at first, then urgent. The kiss tasted like starlight and possibility, and Marcus felt something in him realign, recalibrate toward a future he'd never imagined. Verity cleared her throat. "We should discuss the logistics of convincing your world's leaders," she said with dry humor, "preferably while you're both still capable of forming coherent sentences." But none of them moved. The revelation that Marcus had deceived them, even for noble reasons, drove a wedge between all three. Selene retreated into formality, speaking to him in clipped, efficient tones. Verity became their mediator, shuttling between Marcus and her sister as tension filled the small cottage like poisonous gas. "She's hurt," Verity explained one afternoon while Marcus sat on the porch. "In Selene's culture, deception within a bonding unit is considered a profound betrayal." "I was protecting myself," Marcus said. "You were here with hidden agendas." "Yes," Verity acknowledged. "And you lied while developing romantic feelings for my sister. Which is worse?" Marcus had no answer. That night, he heard Selene crying in the bedroom, a sound that drove through him like jagged glass. He wanted to go to her, to hold her, but she'd made it clear any physical proximity would be counterproductive to objective analysis. But on the fourth night of this Cold War, everything changed. The facility they'd been monitoring, the one Soline and Verity had barely mentioned, experienced a catastrophic explosion. Emergency alerts blared across every channel, and both sisters went rigid with horror. "The Harvesters," Verity whispered. "They've come early. They're destroying the research center because," she looked at Soline, "because someone reported our location." "The Coalition Council," Soline breathed. "They're trying to eliminate our presence before we can establish legitimate contact." Marcus was already moving, grabbing keys, phone, anything. "We have to go. They'll track the blast here." Soline caught his arm, and her formal distance shattered. "I'm sorry. For everything. For not trusting you enough to tell you from the start. Her voice broke. For not giving you a choice before making you care for me." "You didn't make me do anything," Marcus said fiercely. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, seeking the warmth of her lips. "And you don't get to apologize your way out of this. We figure it out together." Verity returned with a bundle of documents, all of which she immediately burned. "We need to move. The embassy files are in the old underground research complex, 30 miles north." "If we can reach there," Marcus interrupted. "My car won't make it." Soline's eyes brightened with purpose. "The backup systems on our ship are partially functional. It's hidden in the northern canyon. If we move now, we can be there in 2 hours." They ran through the desert as dawn cracked the sky, Marcus's truck churning dust beneath wheels. Soline sat press against his side, her hand on his thigh, her earlier anger transformed into fierce determination. Verity monitored the communication frequencies, her expression growing darker. "They're scanning everything," she reported. "Thermal, electromagnetic, biological signatures. They know we're close." As they reached the canyon, Marcus saw it, the alien ship half buried in red rock, still smoking from its forced landing. But more terrifying was the light cutting through the sky above them. Another vessel, massive and predatory, beginning its descent. "Go!" Marcus shouted. Soline grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the ship. "Inside, now!" As they sprinted across the sand, Marcus realized with crystalline clarity that his old life was over. He'd crossed a threshold from which there was no return. Humanity's contact with the stars had begun, and he was no longer an observer, but a participant, bound irrevocably to these two extraordinary women. Behind them, the desert erupted with light. The ship's interior hummed to life beneath Soline's touch, a network of bioluminescent pathways igniting like nervous system. Marcus stumbled through the corridors, disoriented, his mind struggling to accept that he was inside an extraterrestrial vessel. "The fuel cells are compromised," Verity announced from the command station, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that responded to her thoughts. "We can't achieve orbit. We need the embassy files to recalibrate the propulsion matrix." "Then we go to the embassy," Soline said firmly, meeting Marcus's eyes. "Marcus, you need to stay here. This is too dangerous." "Absolutely not," he said. "I'm coming with you." What Marcus didn't expect was the revelation waiting inside the underground complex. The enormous cavern beneath Earth's desert floor wasn't a recent construction. It was ancient, predating human civilization by millennia. And it was undeniably the work of Soline's people. "There's something I never told you," Soline said quietly, standing before a massive crystalline archive. "Something even the Coalition Council doesn't know. My species didn't discover Earth by accident. We seeded it." Marcus felt the ground tilt beneath him. What do you mean, seated? Verity pulled up a holographic display, showing the divergence of human DNA with something startlingly similar. 300,000 of your years ago, our scientists modified a primate species to be sentient, to be capable of art and philosophy and love. They called it the Genesis Protocol. You created us? Marcus's voice sounded small. Our ancestors did, Solene corrected. And then they left, watching from the stars to see if you would survive, if you would flourish. We are, in many ways, your distant cousins. When the Coalition began its conquest of developing worlds, Earth's status as an experimental world was buried in historical records. But my family never forgot. My mother discovered the truth decades ago, and it consumed her obsession with protecting you. Protecting all of you. Marcus sat down heavily on the cool stone floor. Why does this matter now? Because Solene knelt before him, taking his face in her hands. The Harvesters don't know about the Genesis Protocol. If they did, they would claim Earth as their own. But if we can prove that humanity is under the protection of the original protoculture, we can invoke the ancient preservation accords. Earth becomes a protected world. And that requires, Marcus asked, though he was beginning to understand. A representative from the original species, Verity said gently. Someone who can stand before the Coalition and claim guardianship. Someone with both our biology and the authority to make that claim. Understanding crashed into Marcus like a wave. You want to change me, to make me like you? No, Solene said fiercely. I want to offer you a choice. The transformation would merge your human DNA with ours, creating something new. You would exist between worlds, capable of breathing our atmosphere and Earth's, aging slower, accessing technology that's been denied to your kind. But you'd never be fully human again. Marcus looked at her, at this impossible woman who'd fallen from the stars and somehow made him love her. He thought about humanity's future, about the countless people who would never know that this moment determined whether their species would be harvested like crops or preserved as equals. Do it, he said. Solene's breath caught. Marcus, you don't understand what you're... I understand perfectly. He drew her close, kissing her with all the tenderness and passion he'd been forced to suppress. I'm choosing you, both of you. I'm choosing this. The procedure took 3 hours. In a chamber of light and humming energy, Marcus felt his biology rewire itself. It was agonizing and ecstatic simultaneously, like his body was being unmade and remade by God with a better understanding of the blueprint. When it was done, he could see the faint luminescence now visible in his own skin. Solene and Verity held him as he shook, tears streaming down his face. Or perhaps it was the physiological response of his hybrid nervous system. Welcome, Solene whispered, to the in-between. The Coalition Council chambers were a cathedral of starlight and mathematics, and Marcus felt absurdly human standing before them in his new form. His hybrid physiology had shifted him into something elegant and strange, his features retaining their humanity but refined by alien precision. Solene stood on one side, Verity on the other, and the three of them formed a united front against the assembled powers of the galaxy. The Harvester representative, a creature of chitinous angles and ancient hunger, leaned forward. You claim jurisdiction over this developing world under the Genesis Protocol? This is unprecedented and suspicious. Not unprecedented, Marcus replied, his voice amplified through the chamber's translation systems. Merely forgotten. My species, the humans of Earth, are not a discovery to be catalogued and harvested. We are a protected world under the original protoculture's preservation accords. I am the living proof of that bond. The council chamber erupted. Some members looked skeptical, others intrigued. The head arbitrator, an elegant being of crystalline structure and glacial patience, raised a hand for silence. If this claim is verified, the arbitrator said, Earth would indeed fall under historical protections. However, we require more than one hybrid individual. We require binding agreement from the human world leadership, which we have. Verity announced, pulling holographic documents from thin air. Transmitted through encrypted channels, Earth's United Nations Council, presented with the evidence of the Genesis Protocol and the Harvester's invasion, has voted unanimously to petition for protected world status under the original protoculture. Marcus hadn't known if humanity's leaders would actually cooperate. He'd gambled that the revelation of their true origins and the threat of harvesting would unite them. Apparently, it had worked. The council deliberated for hours while the three of them waited in an antechamber. Soline paced nervously. Verity meditated. Marcus simply held both their hands, drawing strength and giving it. When the verdict came, it was unanimous. Earth was recognized as a protected world. The harvesters withdrew their claim. And more astonishingly, Marcus, despite his hybrid nature and alien transformation, was recognized as an official diplomatic representative, authorized to bridge human and extraterrestrial societies. The celebration aboard the coalition vessel was elaborate, but meant nothing compared to the quiet moment Marcus found alone with Soline. They stood on an observation deck, looking out at the vast expanse of stars. Earth was barely visible from this distance, a blue marble, suspended in infinite darkness. You gave up everything, Soline said softly. No, Marcus replied, turning to face her. I gained everything. I gained you. I gained a purpose that extends beyond one small planet. Most importantly, I gained this. He gestured between them. Whatever this is between us. In my culture, Soline said, moving closer, when two people choose each other, after facing the forces that would tear them apart, it's called a constellation bond. It's deeper than marriage, more permanent than any biological tie. It means, Marcus kissed her, silencing her words. Some things transcended language, transcended species. When Verity found them like that, lips locked together, as they had been that first night in the cottage, she didn't interrupt. She simply smiled sadly and left them to their moment. Over the following months, Marcus became the architect of humanity's integration into galactic society. He traveled between Earth and the stations orbiting her, carrying messages of peace and possibility. He aged slower than his former species, watching humans below live out their years, while he remained fixed in a state of extended adolescence. But he never regretted it. Not when Soline was beside him, her hand finding his in dark corridors and starlit chambers. Not when Verity's dry humor helped him navigate political impossibilities. Not when he received messages from Earth's leaders describing the technological revolution sparked by cosmic contact. The diseases cured, the energy solutions discovered, the expansion of human potential made possible. One evening, on a station orbiting Earth, Marcus received a message from his former mentor, Dr. Harrison, the observatory director. Marcus, the voice recording crackled. I don't know if you'll ever hear this, but I need to tell you something. The world below is forever changed. Children now dream of the stars, knowing they're not alone. We've built monuments to you, all three of you, as the guardians who saved humanity. I wanted you to know that even if you can never truly come home, you're always remembered as the boy who loved the stars enough to become one. Marcus played the message again, tears sliding down his cheeks. Soline found him there, staring out at the world of his birth, and without words, she held him. Verity, entering moments later, added simply, "He's right, you know. You saved your species, we saved his, and together, we saved something even more precious, the possibility of peace between worlds." Marcus turned to face both women, looking at their beautiful, alien faces that had become more familiar to him than his own reflection. He realized that the greatest adventure wasn't finding a way off his planet. It was finding two souls who loved him not despite his transformation, but because of it. "What now?" he asked. Soline smiled, that radiant expression that had first appeared when she emerged from the wreckage. "Now we live. Together, across whatever worlds demand our presence. I believe in human terms, that's called forever." And in the vast silence of space, as Earth slowly rotated below them, the three unlikely partners stood together, human and alien, stranger and lover, bound by choice and circumstance, into something that would endure for generations yet unborn. The sky, that had once been a barrier between worlds, had become a bridge, and they were its guardians, its architects, its living proof that love could transcend the boundaries of biology, evolution, and the impossible gulf between stars. End upload.